Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. I want to talk a little bit about prayer today because there's sometimes it can be confusing. Prayer can be because it's sort of like, well, if I don't pray about this, will God's will still be done? If how does that all work? How does it work between God's will, and God who's sovereign, and that will playing out, versus my prayers and what I'm praying for? So this is some of the things that I want to address in this video. And first of all, prayer is just conversing with God. It's talking with God. And one of the first things that's important to realize is that you're coming to God in truth and spirit. So I've been mentioning a lot about these false images, and it's that real desire in your heart to really be coming to the true God. Because if you're praying to a false God, that's not going to help you very much. So your heart has to be, you want to come in truth and really know God as He is, okay? So that's that first check in your heart. And you know if you're really coming to God in truth because you are seeking Him. You have a love for the truth. You have a passion for the truth. You really want to learn from Him. You test all that you hear. So that's the first point. The second is that when you start understanding the true God, you understand His sovereignty, you understand His love and the perfection of His ways. And so your prayers, there's a humbleness there because you are coming to seek God's counsel, to inquire of Him. God, what is your will in this? And really what you're seeking is two things, which are they're kind of the same thing, but one is, what is the truth in this situation? It's like, God, shine the light on that truth. So if it's a counsel about what you should do, that you're seeing it clearly. And two, that whatever your act or response is, that it's the most loving thing. It's the loving response. Because these are the two things that's what God is. He is truth and He's love and He's righteousness. And so that's what you're seeking when you're seeking His counsel. And you have to seek what the loving response is, because we don't know. Because God is love, and our love has been so corrupted by this world, and we can't know anyone's situation what's truly the best for someone. So a lot of times when it's laid on our heart, then we come to God in prayer and we pray about it, and we're seeking that counsel. And that's very important, because even just this morning I was reading in Zephaniah 1:6, and I would strongly suggest you read Zephaniah. It's a short little book. It's only 3 chapters, and it is so powerful. It talks about a lot of the things that I've been talking about lately in my videos. But in chapter 1, verse 6, it says, "Those who have turned back from following the Lord and have not sought the Lord nor inquired of Him." This is saying how people are given over to the works of their own hands, and they haven't sought the Lord. They haven't inquired of Him. They've just gone and followed their own self-will and what they thought was best. So it's very important, and you suffer the consequences when you go your own way. So it's very important that we inquire of God, right? Now, obviously, there's so much thing that you do in your life all day long. So as you draw near to God, there's a part where you know you're being governed and led by Him, but He definitely lays things on your mind to seek His counsel about, and so you trust Him in that, right? There's this beautiful dynamic between you just being governed by God in your life and Him moving through you. Then there's things where you're like, God, what's going on? I need your counsel. I need to know. And that's that seeking, and that's that prayer. And of course, in prayer, we praise Him, we express thanksgiving. There's so many different things. And we also come on the behalf of others. And here's the thing, when you're praying for other people, is that when you're praying in faith, right, that you know God, a God of love. You understand His will because you spend that time with Him, for people to know the truth, for people to walk in wisdom, for people to walk in His ways. And you come to God with a heart for someone else to truly experience that. That is very powerful. In your faith in who God is and what God desires for that person, I think is very powerful. But in those prayers, you have to let go of how He's working that out in their life and not judge it, but know that He's working it out perfectly. That's very important, because a lot of times we don't know where what's happening right now, what the end result of that will be, but God does. And so once you've prayed and commit that to him, you really have to trust him in that. But praying for other people is very important, because the faith that you give in God for his care for them is very significant, and that delights him, because that shows that you know him and you know his heart and you know his will. Okay? Now, a very important part of why prayer is so important is because we are creative beings, and we create with our beliefs and with our mind. We do that all day long. And so prayer is, again, you're seeking the counsel of God so that your faith, your belief in a certain situation is based in truth and is based in love, and that will affect that situation tremendously. It has a great impact. So in prayer, you're wanting to align your will with God's will, which is what is that most loving thing to do in that situation. And so that's also very important to understand, because you're always creating with your mind, and you can see what people create in their lives, which is a lot of destruction and harm and pain and suffering, because their beliefs are not correct, and they're not seeking the counsel of God, and they're not submitting to that and walking in it. So seeking that counsel is very important, because we are creative beings. And so that's another very important aspect of prayer, is that you're really aligning your will with God's will, and you're wanting, through that communion with him, for actually his will to become yours, because he does to change your desires, and he makes your desires his desires. So you get into that real unity with him, which makes your prayers all the more powerful, because his words are abiding in you. And when his words are abiding in you, what you're doing, what you're praying, is in accordance with the words of life, which is his desire. So what if you didn't pray about something? It's when I look back on my own life, I see God's hand when I wasn't even acknowledging him in my life, and how that led me to him, how he protected me, watched over, provided for me. This is God's mercy. God has shown us so much mercy in our lives, okay? So there's definitely that aspect where even if we're not walking in his counsel, we're not even seeking him, there's mercy there. And I talked about that mercy being lifted in the tribulation. But yes, that mercy's there. So yes, maybe things would happen anyway, even if I didn't pray about them, right? And even if my mind was on the wrong place, God was so merciful that he didn't give me the full ramifications of my thoughts and my beliefs, which I'm very grateful for. But on the flip side, if I would have been seeking God's counsel, if I would have been praying, I would have avoided so much pain and suffering and bad decisions and hardship. We have always lived in death from the moment that we were born. We don't even understand how amazing life is, true life, to be truly alive, and to have that abundant life, which we have in God. And when you start walking in his counsel and walking his ways, you start experiencing that life. And that's what I've been talking about. And it's what you truly desire. And this is the lie of the world, that walking with God actually doesn't really give you the desires of your heart. It does. And in the most fulfilling, purest, perfect way. Is you have to walk with him in obedience and follow and walk in his ways, because that will lead you in those paths of truth. So if you're not praying, you're not seeking his counsel, and you're not inquiring of him, then your life you're suffering far more than you need to. But if you're seeking him and inquiring, following in his ways, your life will start to bloom, and you've got to trust him in that process and how he works things out. What he takes out of your life, what he brings in his life, that he's the creator and he will work it out perfectly. There is a tremendous power, and this has really been striking my spirit recently. God's been teaching me about this, in trusting God. So when you're praying about a situation and you're in a situation, you know what, God, I'm truly trusting you to work this out. And you can feel a letting go in your spirit of the control, of the worry, of the angst, because you're really trusting God. You're resting in him and how he's going to work that out. And there is a psalm that I just love. It's Psalm 57:2. And let me just turn to that really quick. And it's we don't understand how much better our lives would be if we would walk in the ways of God. But I'm hoping by these videos that you guys are motivated to seek that, because I'm telling you, the blessings of God are real. His presence in your life is real, and His presence manifests in experiencing a real love in your life for yourself, for Him, for other people, of experiencing a real joy that underscores just everything in your life, of experiencing wisdom. So you're making decisions just much better. You see His blessing in your life in a very physical way. There's so many blessings from God. And in Psalm 57:2, he says, I will cry out to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. And that's the trust you have in every situation. It's not trusting in your flesh or having confidence in the flesh, for the flesh profits nothing. But it's having confidence in God that He's working through you in that situation. And that is very important and very powerful when you have that real trust, and that is throughout the Bible. And there's another couple of verses that I want to read. It's Psalm 56:3-4. Whenever I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, I will praise His word. In God, I have put my trust. I will not fear, for what can flesh do to me? When you are truly trusting God and the true God, that is very powerful in your life, and it changes your circumstances. And prayer also puts us in that state of mind as we come to God and submit to Him, of truly trusting Him with whatever it is, whether it's our life or with somebody else's life. Because our prayers avail much when they're coming from the righteousness, which is that righteousness of Christ in us. And let me just see if there's anything, because I was writing a lot of notes about this morning. There's just so many aspects of prayer, but I hope that this, that some of these concepts shed some light on how powerful it is, but how important it is to have a love for the truth, to seek the truth, to come to God in truth and into spirit, not trusting the things of the flesh, and to really connecting with Him and seeking His counsel and inquiring of Him, especially in these days, because that is your protection and it is your fortress. And so until next time, keep stirring the deep, because it's the one thing that changes everything else.